Just we're going to go ahead and go live. That's the fun thing about people asking you questions about your books is you absolutely know the answers. You don't have to study or anything. Hey,
Like that.
everybody! Good to see you. Welcome to date night. It's Saturday night. Time for going out and time for you to pick which book you're going to cuddle up with tonight. We have three magnificent authors with us tonight, and we're going to go talk through them one by one and go through who they are as a person, who they are as an artist, and who they are, what they have to offer you with the stories that they're going to tell. Does everybody want to say hi?
Oh, I should go first. Hi.
Fantastic. And so we're going to go one by one. And by luck of the draw, I believe that Katie is the one who's going first. So, gentlemen, we will see you in a moment as you wait behind the curtain. Katie, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to read your bio. And
I fixed it. I fixed it, though. I fixed it today.
I stole the Amazon one. It was
good. That's better.
It had Powder Springs right in there. So because you get to know authors a little bit in preamble from their bio and who they are. So I kind of want to start there before we dig in a little bit further. And so K.E. Andrews has always been an avid reader, which sparked her passion for writing at an early age. Her love of traveling has taken her to different places around the world, like we don't want to know what those are. When she's not writing, she tends to her plants, volunteers at church, and enjoys binge watching shows on Netflix. You're not wrong. Currently lives in Powder Springs, Georgia, with her family and 3 cats. That's the main thing I want to know first, right off the bat, is different places around the world. Like, what's the biggest, coolest, adventure that you've had?
Ooh. Well, the one that has the best story is Scotland because it's a 2-part one. I was supposed to go in 2018, but then I got detained. So got to really experience the London airport for a full 36 hours behind the back room.
I'm sorry, like come with me, miss?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
so were you trafficking cocaine at the time, or?
No, I was going for a volunteer internship and I was supposed to say tourism instead because you can be in the country for 6 months without a visa, and they didn't have a visa for me because that costs extra money. And so they're like, oh well, Heathrow's just going to be a little bit strict, and me being like the upfront with them, I'm like, oh, I'm just here for an internship. They're like, where's your visa? And I'm like, what visa? And then that's where all the problems started. So so yes, always have a work visa even if it's an unpaid internship. So that was fun. Spent a good long time in the airport. And
like
then
genuinely 36 hours?
So I arrived in the country in London for my connecting flight at about 1:00 in the afternoon. I stayed in the back room for pretty much like 12 hours and I did not leave the airport. Oh no, I need to come back. Hold up. There, I'm back. I did not leave the facility until about midnight, 1 a.m. Then they took me to another secondary location, which always is, avoid the secondary locations, but I couldn't help it because they took all my stuff. So they were going to put me on the next flight back to Atlanta. They were like, either you can leave tonight, go to New York and find your own way home, or you can go to Atlanta tomorrow. And I was like, please send me to Atlanta because I don't want to go to New York. So
wait, how old?
And then I got all my stuff back the next day, and then I was escorted onto the plane because I was a flight risk. So then part 2 happened like 9 months later when I got.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait. That's just part 1?
That was part 1.
Come with me, miss. We're going to interrogate you. I'm assuming they waterboarded you and tied you to a chair and all kinds.
There was tea. I just was not having a good time.
Tea's almost like torture.
I mean, I like tea, so it was fine. It was good British tea, and it was just. And then I had to. So it was like right as Brexit was happening. So I was trying to get my visa, which was a super fun experience. It cost a lot of money and took a real long time. And then when I went to go get my visa, like, oh, we're not doing visas right now. So I'm like, oh, that's fun. Cool. So then I had to wait like 2 more months and then wait 4 hours to get my fingerprints taken and my face photographed. And then I got a visa and then I could go. Then I went to Scotland for 6 months. So that was part 2. But on the way to the Edinburgh airport, the second time around, they did take my passport for a good 15 minutes. And I thought, oh no, here we go again. But then I made it. So it was fine. But then I get to say, like, I've been I mean, technically I was deported. I was in the country for a little bit, then sent back, and it was great. All traveling by myself, which was so much fun.
So, and so the rest of your life, you can say, I have been deported from England.
Yeah, I mean, they gave me, like, a nice little packet of stuff at the detainment facility, and it does say prison number at the top. So,
Whoa!
I mean, I was hardcore.
Are the
That was
English prisoner?
I don't know, they just Heathrow's not fun. I have beef with Heathrow Airport. Edinburgh Airport's fine, but London and I are just not friends, but
No. Do you think you could be friends? Do you think if they were, would they be able to show you enough of a good time?
I don't know, even leaving the airport was a I had to run through that airport. It was not fun.
And this is all when you're like a kid, right? Like 20 or something?
I was 24, I think.
24.
Hold on. Yes.
Not even old
Yes.
enough to rent a car.
I know. So much fun. So much fun. But I had been other places before, but this was the first trip that I went on by myself internationally. There was no team for me to be like,
Fall
"What's
back on.
happening?"
Oh, just lie to in customs. That'll be fine.
Yeah, I didn't, and I should have, I guess. It would have been fine.
It's like quality organization here.
Well, and I was the one who set the precedent then for the rest of the interns of, "Don't say this. You need a visa."
Yeah.
So, it's always fun being that person,
Oh,
but
yeah. You're the
Scotland was
cautionary
fun.
tale.
Yeah. Just not London.
So one of the
I'm
things that I always like to ask people, because I really feel like it helps like get to know them a little bit better. What were you like when you were a kid?
mm,
Like just pre-puberty, like 11, 12 years old. Like, are you a mad genius? Are you like hardcore science girl, or what
mm.
you who knocking over jewelry stores? What was up?
I wanna say a weird kid.
What
So,
kind of weird?
I don't know, I like to play in the woods. I really love Steve Irwin, that was my inspiration. So, I would bring home, like, snakes and stuff and, I don't know, all the weird things. I built forts out in the backyard, it was real great. Um,
So wait, what's the environment that you're growing up? Is this like an all woods
mm.
environment? You got to go look for them.
So, where I am in Georgia, we're in like a suburban kind of area, and the neighborhood's got like a good amount of woods behind it. It's not like a lot. I mean, if you walk, I mean, then neighbors' houses are close enough, but it felt like a lot. So, I mean, I can't see the neighbor's house during the summer because it's wooded. So yeah, there was that. I liked that. I read a lot, so the accelerated reading program was real great for me because one, it was competition. I was very competitive as a child, so
Yeah.
that's why I first read Lord of the Rings because it was worth a lot of points.
Like
um,
what grade did you read Lord of the Rings in?
sorry, what?
What grade did you read Lord of the Rings in? Were you like middle school, high school?
I was elementary school.
Yes.
Yeah, I was also in the Target program, which was for like it was boring at times, but it was fun when we got to read like ancient history. The science part, well, the math part of it was not fun.
Yeah.
That was not fun. Trigonometry is in 3rd grade was not fun,
So,
but everything else was fun.
so you're like creative from the ground up.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you built that way. So like going out and playing, is it you solo and you're making up adventures as you go? Are there like a pack of brothers and sisters? Is there a roving gang of neighborhood kids?
There were neighborhood kids. There were some creeks behind some people's houses, so that was always fun because you could find interesting things. The neighbor boy was fun to build forts with. My brother is 3 years younger, so he wasn't as much fun in elementary school. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of undeveloped land around us before they put the other houses in, so that was fun to kind of explore. But yeah, no, I always loved stories. I think I got into anime real early, I think 5th grade. So that was downhill from there.
And what was your anime? Like, what was your introduction or
Ooh,
first love?
I want to say Naruto, early Naruto, and
That'll
then
do it.
Bleach. So a lot of the Shonen Jump stuff
Yeah.
was just my introduction into that world. Which is how I met my best friend was in middle school. I had like all these anime photos because I like to draw and stuff a lot. So I brought that to chorus class one time and then we became best friends and it's been a long time. I think it's been 13 years now. So yes.
Nice. That's
Weird
great.
kid, but friendships were born.
Love having friends like that. So when it comes to your writing, like who are the people that influence not just the early people, but the people that influenced your work now? Because Assassin of Grins and Secrets, I mean, how old is it? It just came out, right?
So the story I actually started my sophomore year of high school. So it was a good 10-ish years. So it only came out in 2021. So I worked on it for a good long time. I had actually started another kind of series that kind of stemmed out from fan fiction in like early middle school. I really thought it was going to be a bestseller. Not great. I carried that with me up until high school. And then I was like, oh, this is bad writing. But it helped me establish, what is maybe good writing.
So who were the writers that fed into you for that?
Well, unfortunately, I would say Stephanie Myers for that. But then I learned that, maybe that's not a great great book, but it was my introduction into it.
Good to be taken from everywhere.
Yes. As much as I like to hate on Sarah J. Maas was also my first introduction into fantasy with like a female assassin. But I had always liked Tolkien. I did read Harry Potter. I had to smuggle that home because my mom would not let me read that. So I
like
still
the
read
whole
it anyway.
witchcraft thing.
Yeah, but we read Chronicles of Narnia, so I'm like, there's magic there. So I don't know. So C.S. Lewis.
It's Christian magic, so
it's Christian magic, but there's a witch and a lion that talks and everything else. Anyway. So definitely like Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, and then later I think actually Prince of Thorns I did pick up in high school at some point along with Game of Thrones. So that was like I really liked fantasy from the get-go. So those were my main influences into like what are morally gray protagonists? What are these kinds of characters? And I was like, those are cool. And I just love them ever since.
Nice. Well, my apologies. I just became aware of Assassins of Grins and Secrets like 5 months ago. So my apologies. I thought, and you've got something new coming in?
Yes, I do.
We'll talk about that as we get closer. But I do want to talk about Assassins of Grins and Secrets really quick. So who are the writers that you see being similar to you in that if I like X, Y, and Z, like if I like Sarah J. Maas, do I want to read Assassins of Grins and Secrets, or what are good parallels for you? If I like X, then Y?
That's a good question. The solid choice would be We Hunt the Flames. That's a really just fun kind of Middle Eastern inspired world with oh, hold on. My screen keeps going in and out. Wi-Fi is fun. But yeah, We Hunt the Flames. It's got with some like assassins things. Yes, there is a cat meowing. He's upset because I shut the door because if I leave the door open, he'll come in and yeah, we don't need that. There's a cat. But yeah, We Hunt the Flames is great because it's got, assassins in it and Middle Eastern inspired world, which is kind of like what my book is kind of like. Well, it is. Mirage, which is more like Moroccan inspired. And then City of Whispers, which is actually an indie book that also has an assassin in the city and also another grumpy kind of character on the side. So that really plays off the dynamic of my main character and another secondary character. So I almost want to say Prince of Thorns in terms of just morally gray characters, like just a lot of them.
Yeah.
But that's like kind of down on the list, but
it's just a little bit further down, but it's
just a little bit. No offense to Mark Lawrence, but he was a good inspiration. And then of course Throne of Glass, which actually was the inspiration for this book. And then I was like, I hate how she did this. So let's see if we can do a better one.
Okay, so you said this could be good, and I'm gonna make it good.
Yeah, I was like, oh, cool, female assassin, but then I just didn't like how it was done. So I was like, let's try a different approach. So the framework is kind of like the inspiration. So it's like, if you like that kind of thing, then this is also like that, but a little bit edgier.
Well, and
Ember in
I've
the
got
Ashes, possibly. Less revolution, though.
so I've got about 1 minute for an extra bonus question, which is, what do you see about female assassins in literature that you don't like?
Mm. I They always seem to default to like seduction and really looks based kind of
Okay.
killing, which is fine. But I was like, well, what do you do if that's not an option? Like, where's the actual like skill component? Where is, what are they doing when they're not killing? Or, where, especially when like romance is introduced to a female assassin, I'm like, there's so much more we could do with that. I'm like, what if they're wearing normal clothes that aren't skin tight, or anything that's really revealing and provocative? I'm like, well, that seems ineffective. So really, just treating like female assassins as just like normal people. They just happen to be women. So
Right.
that's why I kind of wanted to focus in on. Not that there can't be, but you know.
So, what were you looking to say about the human condition, or what mirror were you holding up to life? What did you want to see in this book?
I really kind of wanted to do the exploration of like anxiety and trauma with some of my characters, and how is the mental aspect portrayed? How is this going to affect different choices? How can they live with things that have happened to them while still having a plot that's separate from that? So with all my characters, there's usually something going on in their life that's happened, whether they've acknowledged it, or they're dealing with it, or they're moving past it. So really just kind of the human condition of what's happening in their minds and emotionally. How is that going to affect the thing without it kind of being their whole personality?
Right. So, we're all looking for something in our stories, right? There's something that we're hoping to get out of it. With your book, like what's the itch that you see getting scratched? The people that are reading it and really enjoying it, like what's the satisfaction that they're getting out of it specifically?
I was going to say food descriptions, but that's not really
Always
the
relevant?
plot. Yes, good food descriptions. But really just having maybe a female protagonist that has her own kind of mission without it being a romantic plot kind of thing. Because I see that a lot in fantasy. So I'm like, well, what if we kind of separate that so it's not automatically like, oh, here's a love triangle. Let's do that. It's more of a hate triangle, honestly, in the beginning of these people don't like each other. Um, so I really just wanted to see, how can we have these female characters be capable, but also experience moments of vulnerability and still accomplish what they're wanting to do. And also just a good revenge story, I think, as
Yeah.
well. And then just
Nice.
choosing like, is revenge actually, the thing that's gonna,
Is this gonna help
fix it?
really?
Is this gonna help? Who knows?
Okay, I have a million more questions
But
I want to ask you, but
I
given
don't
that
know.
we've got 2 minutes, I wanted to say you've
Mhm.
got something coming out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I am releasing I guess it's romance fantasy. I don't really know. Romance is there, but there's also like undead gods and necromancy and stuff. So, Hills of Heather and Bone, I'm hoping to release that mid-May ish. And then I did do a cover reveal because we talked about that. So I do
May
have the
I?
cover.
May
You
I?
have the cover. So yeah, there's my baby. It's more like Celtic, Scottish inspired, and basically necromancy, or it's called bone weaving. They can kind of hear stories in the bones, but it's a forbidden type of blood gift, which is the magic that exists in this world. So my main character Morana has to go on the run with her husband just to try and find a safe place to live and just kind of experience her gift. Um, so there is a chicken as well. There is chicken, and I have to throw that out. The chicken. Most of my beta readers like, I really love this chicken. I'm like, I do too. But yes, it's just a married couple on the run with their chicken, and there we go.
So when's the release date?
I am hoping for May 20th, but we'll see because nothing ever goes according to plan. But we're aiming for May 20th, and we'll see.
Hey, you've got the cover done. Other
I
than
do.
actually writing it, that's
Oh,
probably one
it's mostly written. It's just not copy edited yet, and I just want to make sure that it's good.
of
So, I mean, it's written. I've got all the interior art figured out, maps done, covers done. So just need to work on the content and everything else.
That is fantastic. Thank you very, very much for spending the time today. I really appreciate you. And everybody who's taking a look at this, go out and buy Assassins of Grins and Secrets, because you just heard a whole bunch of things that sound really appealing.
Oh,
So,
should I actually show the book? I have it. I forgot to.
yeah, hold it up.
There we go. That's my baby.
Ta-ta-ta.
That first one. Yes.
Go and get it now. All
Wherever
right,
books
thank
are
you.
sold.
Thank you very much, Katie. I appreciate you. And we are going to move on to our next guest, Mr. Troy Knowlton. I appreciate you. And, oh, Troy, look at him. I mean, seriously. Bye, Katie. He's got a rose. Troy, what the hell?
I'm ready for my date, Andy. You look stunning, by the way. May I offer you some wine?
Oh, please, please.
Alrighty.
I'd be more than happy to have some. For those of you who don't know Troy, Troy is ridiculously hilarious, and came to my absolute attention when he's a man of honor. He lost a bet, and in responding to losing the bet, he did some self-effacing video that may be one of the funniest things that I saw in the entirety of last year. So thank you, Troy. And I want to start out with you like we did with Katie by reading your bio. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
So Troy Knowlton has always had a burning desire to tell stories. He started at a young age by drawing maps of made-up continents and fantasy kingdoms. The empty kingdoms beckoned to be given life, and his world eventually blossomed, leaving him to create full narratives and characters for his words. He currently lives in California, where he works as an X-ray technologist and teacher when he isn't writing. He's also a great lover of history, currently working to earn his bachelor's degree in the history and political science. You're a man of many interests.
Yes, it's a fancy way of saying I'm a nerd, but yes, I have a lot of interests. I actually got my bachelor's degree now, and yeah, I love history. I love storytelling. History kind of oftentimes will seem like storytelling, depending on how you read it or how you look at it. So, yeah, I like a lot of things. Too many things to count sometimes.
So are you kind of a pain in the ass polymath where you're kind of a little bit good at everything?
Yes, journeyman of everything, master of nothing.
Amen,
Exactly.
brother. That's a good way to go.
Yeah.
So how about you when you were a kid? Were you like Mr. Brilliant, I'm absorbing everything? Or were you just kind of wandering off and staring at the ceiling kind of guy?
So I was probably smart enough to get away with being really lazy, and
Yes.
that's what I did.
Yes.
I didn't do a lot of studying. I wasn't the person who would go home and read the assigned reading or anything like that. Typically, I would do it right before class or the night before. And I just like playing video games and watching TV. And as soon as I discovered Dragon Ball Z, it was over.
Oh,
Yeah, I like shonen anime too.
Now, was this kind of I come home from school and I watch Dragon Ball Z because it's on, or I come home from school and I just stream Dragons of Ball Z?
Oh no, this was I come home from school, play video games for about 3 hours, and then hop on to Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, just consume whatever's on there. Usually stay up to watch Adult Swim, and maybe sometime in between there try to get my homework done. Maybe. Especially if my parents are yelling at me, then I would probably try to get it done.
Okay, I was wondering if your parents were in the picture at all, or you just kind of lived by yourself in a shack by the railroad.
Ooh, that makes for a good story.
Makes for an interesting childhood. Yeah. So with your writing and you coming up, like what were the biggest influences on you and your writing?
So it's really funny. I wasn't a big reader when I was a kid. I read books, signed reading that we would always have to do, and I really enjoyed them. I just, like I said, I was just a hardcore video gamer. That's all I really cared about. I didn't have a controller for a book, so I didn't really start enjoying and kind of just having a passion for reading until much later in life. But I would say that a lot of film actually influenced the way I like to tell stories when I do my writing. So things like, the classics like Indiana Jones, those, really tropey sort of action movies. I really enjoyed that. Anime, like I said, Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. Kid shows too, like probably my all-time favorite show ever is Avatar: The Last Airbender. I just love how they balanced, the serious topics that they could just hit on like super well, and then also just make it so funny and like kind of whimsical. So that's something that I really look to try to emulate in my writing, kind of tackle those really tougher aspects of the human condition, but then also, have a little bit of lighthearted fun. I just love the mix. It's like just a really delicious salad.
I completely agree with you, because it's a lot easier to absorb the nutritious parts of the salad when you've got a nice dressing on there. Like going and touching on comedy every once in a while makes the rest of the stuff stick.
Yes. That's
just my kind of feeling about it. So what's the stuff that you're loving right now? Actually, no. For a Last Airbender guy, I have to ask. So this means you really loved the movie, right?
Oh God, what movie? Ugh. I'm cautiously excited for the Netflix series, but I try to pretend that movie didn't exist. Me and my cousin are huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fans. We went to see it in theaters like one of the first days it came out, and left like completely destroyed.
Right.
Yeah.
And it had all of the earmarks. I mean,
you really would think, but yeah, it just man. I don't know if that one was more rough or Dragon Ball Evolution. They're both kind of tied with me.
Okay, so talking about the book, Seekers, The Winds of Change. First of all, I'm very curious how you came up with that title, because it's got an interesting cadence to it.
Yeah, so I came up with it's really funny that you'd ask that, because I actually do have a story. So the actual title of Seekers, how a lot of the stuff sort of came about in terms of, just how I put all the bones and pieces together for the novel was my fiance is actually was working on her teaching credential at the time. And so we would go to Starbucks. It was a lot of, 2-hour, 3-hour study sessions. I didn't have anything to do. I was just working as an x-ray tech. Yeah. And I like telling stories, and I like drawing fantasy maps because I'm kind of nerdy in that way. So I would just sit and draw maps and think of ideas and mystical worlds and stuff like that. And then I came up with the idea of the Seekers, who are, basically, I love Indiana Jones. I mentioned Indiana Jones earlier. Raiders of the Lost Ark was one of my favorite movies. And the idea of someone hunting old ancient artifacts, that's hitting all the right notes for me. So I came up with the idea for Seekers, who are basically high fantasy versions of Indiana Jones with a little dash of 007. They're kind of specialized agents that get sent to find things, usually artifacts from this ancient kingdom of the past. And so that's how I came up with the Seekers and Seekers, The Winds of Change. And I didn't actually come up with the subtitle until I was kind of, I think probably, I might have been halfway through it. And I work at a clinic a couple days a week. And I kind of, while I was writing, I understood the themes of what I wanted to convey in the story, but I didn't know what to call that in terms of a title. And then I'm walking in one day to this clinic that I work at. And just behind this clinic, there is a hill. And during the summertime, I think this was the summertime, the hills has a lot of tall grass. And the wind was just catching the tall grass just perfectly and making it kind of wave. And, I would think about that. And I thought about that into the very next day when I went in the hospital, still another very windy day. And I'm like, that's what wind does. Wind changes things for better or for worse. Sometimes when wind is coming and it's kind of cold, it hurts, right? Because change can hurt. But sometimes it changes things for the better. And so the Winds of Change, I know a lot of things, have that subtitle Winds of Change, but I thought it was apt for this type of story that I was trying to tell. So, and it seems to flow pretty good. So I like it.
Well, and so are you starting to find parallels between yourself and other writers? Because there's the people that influence you, and then the people maybe that you try and pick up the stuff that they're doing. And then the book comes out and you get this whole range of, oh, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. Are you starting to see some patterns there?
Yeah, so before I went the route of self-publishing, I was trying to query from TradPub, yeah. And what I found, I did a little bit of reading just in the genre to try to see what is sort of similar. And I'm going to sound like a broken record because Katie already said it earlier, but An Ember in the Ashes and We Hunt the Flame are they have some similar notes. Now, Ember in the Ashes, mostly because of the dual POV. You're dealing with kids that are going through, change in that kind of 18 to 20-ish kind of, or maybe even like 16, 17 to 20-ish kind of area, where you're sort of a young adult, but not quite legally an adult yet, So that kind of touches in on Embers, and then the whole idea of a empire that rules most of the world. That's where I'm getting from Embers. And then from We Hunt the Flame, I got more of that ensemble cast. That's one thing that I really love about fantasy, and I love Tolkien for that. Just having other that have their own unique personalities that could basically, like how I know that George R. R. Martin said this in a bunch of interviews, be the main character of their own stories. And so that's how I kind of try to approach writing those characters. And I think that We Hunt the Flame is really similar to that in terms of the way that they present their side characters. But those are the two kind of YA examples that I think that I draw the most inspiration of, at least right now, because I'm going to tell you straight up, Andy, I'm woefully underread. So I need to expose myself a little bit more to different things.
Absolutely. Which is why everybody who watches this needs to buy a copy so that they can get it on the TBR and make sure that it gets read.
Exactly.
I mean, that's really the key of what needs to happen right here, right now. By the way, if you happen to have access to a computer, you can go on to Amazon right now and buy Seekers, The Winds of Change, this very instant. And I encourage you to do so. Actually, let's encourage them to do so a little bit more. We've got Ember in the Ashes. We've got We Hunt the Flame. What else have you discovered that you're being compared to as the book continues to roll?
I haven't heard a lot of specific titles, but I have heard a lot of like feelings, like in terms of what I'm getting back with reviews.
Yeah.
They're saying that it's fast paced, that it's funny, and that it has a lot of good action scenes, character development, all things that I really, really, tried to focus on when I was writing it. But the funniest thing is I really don't like writing action scenes. I'm going to tell you straight up, Andy. I don't like writing them. And I couldn't tell you why. I have this awkward feeling whenever I write action scenes. And I was so worried before it came out that the action scenes were going to turn out horrible. But people seem to like them. The frenetic nature, how it's very, very fast paced. It's not, going to last for multiple pages, usually very quick, a couple of strikes and it's done. And I think that kind of leaves some suspense. You don't really know how those scenes are going to turn out. And that's what I really wanted to do with those scenes.
Do you feel like it's one of those things where it's, oh, I don't like doing it, but it turns out I'm pretty darn good at it?
It may be. I'm not sure. I'll have to get a couple more books under my belt just to see. I'm starting to have less apprehension about writing them, but it's still kind of that weird feeling in there that I'm just like, I don't like writing these, but I guess they're turning out okay so far.
Well, and the other one that I wanted to ask you is, do you find people, since a lot of your influence is TV and film, do you find a lot of people talking about kind of a visual aspect to it? Because people usually kind of absorb from there, kind of put that out in the work. Is that true?
Yes, I have heard of that, and a lot of the feedback that I've been getting, that the visual aspect of my writing, kind of really just because that's the only way that I could write it. By the way, the film stuff doesn't help with imposter syndrome. All these people are saying all these different books that they've been inspired by, and I'm like, well, I have a few. I can count on two hands maybe how many of that I've been inspired by. But
I've only read 4 books.
Right. I'm remedying that, by the way. I have a lot on the TBR, and I'm knocking out a bunch of them. But yeah, I still consider myself, compared to all of you all, woefully underread.
Oh, dude, I feel the exact same way. People talk about stuff I've never even heard of all the time.
There's so much, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so much, which is, part of the reason that I want to do this kind of thing for indie authors is get it on the top of people's minds, where it's like, hey, I heard it was this, this, and this. I like all those things. Okay, I'm going to give it a shot. Because I think a lot of people want to support indie authors, but there's so much stuff out there. It's like, where do we go? So let's do a little digging and find out this stuff that works. One of the things that I really wanted to, actually, I'm going to ask you the human condition question first. What is it that you wanted to say about our experience, or holding the mirror up to reality? What's the why on that with the book?
So that's an interesting question. It kind of touches on what I was saying earlier, but basically what I wanted to convey, like if we were to cut my book apart, what is the main thing I want people to take away? It's that change in someone's life is not only when they're young or when they're going through puberty, or the age where most people associate with a lot of change. Change happens throughout someone's life. It's an evergreen emotion, an evergreen feeling. I went through probably the most change in my life just these past few years. I was an X-ray tech for a while. I took my X-ray boards, got accepted. I was about like, I think 20, 23, 24-ish. I don't even remember. And just in these past like 4 or 5 years, I have started working, started teaching as an X-ray tech, taken more classes for my bachelor's degree. My dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I took care of him. My parents split, and then my dad passed away. And so just all of that happening. And then, of course, I met my lovely fiance. We've been together. We've now moved in together. But all of those things, that's all change. And some of it is good, some of it is bad, and some of it's kind of just in between. But, not everybody, I don't feel like everybody experiences that all the time. And so people need to be reminded that if they do go through that type of change later in life, that it's perfectly normal and it happens to people. And being able to deal with that and kind of try to see what pathways that takes, and kind of just how you deal with some of the emotional aspects, just of all of that. That's something that I really wanted to kind of just explore with Seekers.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot. That's amazing. Is that the why on why you wrote the book? Is that you wanted to be able to say these things? Or was it like one of the things where it's just like, it's time, this has been kicking around in my head for a long time? Like, what was the reason why you actually sat down and said, okay, I'm going to do this?
So it's kind of both. And I actually have a funny story as to why I even started writing the story to begin with. So I obviously had all these emotions and all this stuff kind of pent up inside that I wanted to just spew out. But really, the actual reason why I finally put pen down to paper is sort of mundane and a little bit nerdy and hilarious. So me and my friends want to try out Dungeons and Dragons for the first time. And they needed a DM. And me, being the person that always likes to draw maps and make up fantasy worlds, I wanted to be the DM. So I created a lot of the stuff for Seekers just so we could play a D&D game. Of course, that fell through because scheduling and just trying to get everybody together is just, it seems like an impossibility some days.
Oh my God.
That fell through, and I had all this work that I'd done, and I'm like, well, I always wanted to tell a story. Let me actually try to put pen to paper. Had zero writing experience.
Wow.
Didn't know a semicolon from when I should change paragraphs for different speakers to talk, anything like that. Luckily, I have a coworker whose sister, all the way back in Pittsburgh, has a master's degree in creative writing. So I got with her, and she helped me kind of fine tune my writing to get to something that looks legible. And so I was able to do that, and then kind of go through the different avenues of finding a proofreader and all of this other stuff that we have to do as indie authors. It's made Seekers.
That is amazing. You made an entire story out of what was intended to be a D&D game.
Yep.
It winds up having all of this emotional resonance to it. That's incredible.
Yeah, so I guess the D&D game was the spark, and then once I really started writing, then all of that just came out, and I just wanted to get it onto the page.
Here's the volcano. So we've got 2 minutes left, and I want to get Seekers back up on the screen here real quick. So what is the itch that this story scratches? And we talked about this with Katie a little bit, but if you're looking for this, Seekers really does the job. Do you have a feeling for like what that is? What need you fill?
So it's kind of that like feeling you get when you watch a really good Marvel movie. You get the action, you get a little bit of fun mixed in with it. You sometimes get those emotional scenes, but ultimately I just wanted it to be a fun read. It's very, very fast paced. You can get through it pretty quick. It's only about 80,000 words. So it's a fast paced, quick read that's fun and that touches on some very, very kind of, we would say dark, like emotional themes.
That sounds like it satisfies a lot of things.
and that's kind of what I wanted to do with it too. I wanted to make sure I casted a wide enough net that someone could find something that they would like to enjoy, almost like a salad. If I don't like the tomatoes, I can overlook the tomatoes, or I can pick out the tomatoes. But I want to find something for me. Then I'm going to try to get as much as I can.
And then I want to put you on the spot real quick.
Ooh, okay.
Do you have, and you don't have to do it verbatim, But do you have a favorite line or quote out of the book, or something that other people have said, oh, I really liked this?
Yes, and it's the same thing that I read when I talked to Leslie from Nerdy Narrative. Luckily, I have it right here. I'll read it for you.
Please.
It's the last line of the book, and it kind of ties everything up in a nice bow, and it doesn't have any spoilers.
This is why you can read the last page of the book and not know what was going to happen.
Exactly. So, powerful cascading gusts of wind are like a primal, visceral representation of the very aspect of change. People can be like young seeds tossed around growing in fertile soil or falling onto the coarse ground. They can also be like old leaves torn from their branches by the mighty gale and forced to fade away through the passage of time. Wind can separate some leaves that lay together in a pile, twisting them and flinging them off in various directions to distant, unknown ends. Still, wind can also push two leaves together, melding them and sending them off into the sunny horizon of a bright, never-ending spring. That's my favorite line, anyway. I don't know. I don't like liking what I wrote, you know. It's kind of like giving yourself a participation trophy, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, thank you, me.
And Andrew Meredith reads it so much better. He did my audiobook, by the way. And so hearing my nasally voice read it is a disservice.
Well, and speaking of Mr. Meredith, we're bringing him right up. But I want to say that if you liked what you heard, right now on Amazon, the book is available to you. Go and buy it. Toot sweet. So, Troy, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you a lot.
Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate you.
And we'll talk again soon. Bye.
Yeah, take care.
Mr. Meredith. Dun, dun, dun.
Andy,
how's your afternoon going?
it's going great. I'm having a great weekend.
All right. So the entire time, have you been like writing down all the questions? Like, oh, this is.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. I think maybe we'll see.
All right, good. We're changing all of the questions for round 3. I have really been looking forward to talking with you for a long time because
Likewise.
You've been part of my universe for a long time, and it's a little bit like.
Wait, I'm in Keymark?
Oh yeah, that's right. But
Forgot about that. Oh.
But it's kind of like Troy. It's like it's that humor that keeps coming through. It's like this is consistent and persistent. Me gusta. So I want to go ahead and do your bio, and then we'll jump from there.
Yep.
So Andrew D. Meredith's journey has taken him to many fantastical places, from selling books in the wilds of Western Washington to designing and publishing board games in the Great White Midwest. He's now committed to the quest he was called to so long ago, the telling of fantastical tales and bringing to life underestimated characters willing to take on the responsibilities no one else will. That's a pretty darn good bio.
We're done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really all we need to know about you. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Like, did you have a lot of fun putting together your own bio?
Oh yeah. I mean, how do you make it in a way that isn't too specific in that he was born in 1982 in Spokane? Who cares?
Right.
And so I wanted something that would be just universal enough, but also could be paired with the most recent picture of myself, because I refuse to have a 1980s sweater photo of me that I'm still writing 20 years from now.
I want that. Can you please just put that somewhere so we can see it? Big poof of hair going up
with the neon, with the blue neon behind. Yeah.
That's the look we're after. So, selling books in the wilds of Western Washington, first of all, is fantastic alliteration.
Thank you.
But what is that story?
So my first job was working at a law library, moving from one building to the other, and then stripping old labels off of library books, and then moved into selling in bookstores for 5 years. And then I moved to Seattle after I was married and got a job at a Barnes & Noble in Bellevue, Washington, which is the most indie Barnes & Noble you'll ever be in.
Okay.
Because it's in a very rich city.
Yeah.
There's no pressure. There's not you got to sell. And it's they're going to come in and spend $20,000 every day. Psh, who cares? Mm-hmm. So on Black Friday, it was a great day to work because all the men would come over from the mall to our bowling alley bookstore. It was an old bowling alley. Just to have somewhere to sit and get away from the chaos while their wives are out shopping over at the mall. So it was a great spot to be in, and a great team. We all read, and it just felt relaxed, even though we were very successful. And so that was my wilds of Washington, was being, I was raised in Eastern Washington and then moved over there for a year and a half after I got married, and just, worked retail during 2008, the worst year to be in retail, but it was a good year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's it like? Okay. So it's like one of those dreams to me and like readers, like I'm surrounded by books and I can pretty much, there's got to be some kind of discount that you get.
Oh yeah, that's the worst part. And if you have the right spot, you can read while you're working, if you're in like an independent bookstore. Yeah. But the best story was actually back in Spokane, where it was the day after Christmas, and it was snowy out, nobody came in, and this guy walks up to me and says, "Can you tell me where your bird books are?" And I look up and I'm staring at the king, Viggo Mortensen. And I almost froze. I sent him off to the bird books. He was coming into town to see his stepfather, bought him a bunch of bird books, bought some Russian so he could study for Eastern Promises. And then when he came back down the stairs, I already had my copy of Return of the King with his face on it ready. And I just waited, trying to I don't want to impose, because he is an amazing man.
Yeah.
Like, can you please sign this? And so I have a copy of Return of the King signed by the king himself. And he is my king. He is my king. Yeah, Mel Reynolds is my captain. Mortensen is my king.
You're not wrong on either count.
I almost bowed. I had that he gives off that presence of Your Highness. It's just that. I can't explain it. Yeah.
He's got that aura. Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Now, was this before or after his book of poems came out?
They were already out and we couldn't get them, because he only independently publishes it, and you know how indie is, and he also doesn't promote it, and so it's really hard. I think you can probably get it now more, but back then it was so underground. I would love to get them, but I've never spotted a chance to get it. Someday.
Oh yeah, Gloria bought it the moment it came out, but I don't think she's actually opened it.
He vanity pressed it back in like 2006, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's do enough about Viggo.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you. So you as a kid, I'm very curious, because you're like a wild card. You could be anything.
Super weird. Weird. So I have Tourette syndrome, which is why I'm always making eyes at everybody on interviews, is because that's like my last hangover tick from childhood. Okay. And from all those girls I was making eyes at. No. Super awkward. Did a lot of theater. But was just super awkward. A homeschooler. So what does that say, right? And yeah, just very weird kid, and kind of not a loner, because I'm super extroverted. Yeah. Can't tell. And but add that with awkward, and that makes for, oh, he's desperate.
Okay.
So, right. So there's a lot of that all the way through high school. College was a great opening chance to socialize, and I mean, I was already socializing through theater, but the act of just being in college was good for me. And then
did you do theater in college?
No, I did like one play in college. I didn't have time. I was working like 3 jobs at a bookstore.
And getting your degree in something else.
Yeah, studio art wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
Yeah, just doing some sculpture. But yeah, I didn't want to do writing, because I didn't want teachers to tell me I was doing anything wrong.
Okay, so you're also an artist from the ground up. I mean, okay.
Yeah, like I was always the drawer. I was always painting miniatures. I do my own maps. All the way through college, I was doodling and taking notes on my books while listening to a professor talk about World War I. And that kept me focused on what he was saying, because I was double focused on what he was saying, what I was drawing, as opposed to being distracted by what was around me. So at least that's what I say. I don't know if it's true, but it got me through college somehow. Not through Spanish.
And just out of curiosity, on stage, what was your big skill? Were you the comedy guy? Were you the
character actors, and I can sing and I can project. So I played a lot of, I didn't play any straight characters as leads, but I played Rooster. I almost made Joseph. In my first year in college, I actually did do a year of theater, and I almost made Joseph. And the musical director, or the director, he was musical director, another one, before he went off to work on Broadway, which he did as a choreographer and a musical director, he was going to give it to me, but his best buddy who applied to said, "I'll quit if you don't give me the job." And he came to me and said, "Will you take Pharaoh?" And I said, as much as I wanted Joseph, but I'm like, I'll take Pharaoh. I can be the bigger person right now, and got to be Pharaoh and a brother again, which was my second time in 2 years in Joseph. But still, I mean, Pharaoh is great to play.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so you're this extrovert and a weirdo, and like maybe actual social skills are not
Maybe
top drawer.
Yep.
You go to college. So I'm not even going to ask about influences yet. I want to know where the book came in, like the first book.
Yeah, so the first book goes back to like 93 when I was like 13.
Okay, so you're a kid.
Yeah, so I'm a kid, and I've read to tie in influences. I've read basically just Eddings and Dragonlance, and a lot of that is just piled in. So it's like if you take The Road, but with no actual purpose, and a couple of characters like Tasselhot Burfoot, and throw in Ninja Turtles, you get the early collation story. And it was a complete. I look back now, and I'm a huge advocate for kids writing fanfic. I didn't know I was writing fanfic, but. So I'm an advocate for kids should be writing. Sorry, I'm reading a comment. Should be writing fanfic and acknowledging that it's fanfic. Yeah. Not acknowledging it's fanfic makes it very difficult, as I can attest, to decouple yourself later because you think you have this amazing story, but it's still the fanfic that you've been telling yourself is incredible. It may have been incredible, but if you wrote fanfic, then you know it, then you can decouple and write something that then becomes your own. And it took me 20 extra years to get to that point, right? Because I wrote it and then wrote a bad version in 2011. So the official first draft that was actually finished, 100,000 words, was in 2011. Okay. And it's bad. It's really bad. Kind of stopped writing for a while, discovered writing excuses, and basically listened to all 12 seasons that were out at the time as a master's level course for myself. While I was brewing beer on the side, like in my basement, I'd just be listening to writing excuses. And after I finished that, it always ends every episode with, now you're out of excuses, now go write. But I had the excuse of the next episode. And when I got caught up, I had no more excuses.
Now you're out of excuses.
I had to write. And that was 2017. So 2017, I wrote the first draft of I think it was just called Bone Shroud. And it was 175,000 word manuscript. I tried pitching it out, realized I can actually split it into two, and started dreaming up where that would happen. And then, and now we're here. I switched over to indie in the middle of 2020 because then we had time to figure it out. Yeah. And my wife and I both took the dive into indie at that point and said, let's figure this out. So yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. That helps me understand a little bit. So now let's talk about influences. Yep. And actually, I want to skip the kid influences, which is pretty rare. Yeah. Because it feels like you had this giant sea change. Yep. And so it was the boy you were, and then you taught yourself for 7 years or whatever it was, and then you came out the other side kind of a different guy. So that different guy, what are his influences? So late teens, I discovered Hobb and read the first the Farseer trilogy, and that was a huge influence, right, and a change. But when I moved out to Bellevue, I kind of quit reading fantasy for about a year. Okay. And during that time, read a ton while I was at that bookstore to just try to read non-fantasy, and I was reading Pillars of the Earth, Name of the Rose, even I Am Legend, which I don't read horror, but the I Am Legend omnibus is a fantastic omnibus. Yeah. And it covers every possible bit of undead. And then some other employee handed me Mistborn. Oh, wow. Okay. Because I had kind of quit fantasy because I was like, it's all the same. And every book I picked up, I hated the naming conventions, and I was like, ugh, this is terrible. I can't stand it. There's no good fantasy, which is not true. I just wasn't opening my mind, right? So that's why it was good that I switched away. Yeah. Yeah. Then I read Mistborn and was like, oh, there is good and new fantasy. Boom, let's go. And everything changed from then on because I was like, okay, I can write this stuff. I thought my book was great. Went to go work at a game company at Fantasy Flight. And had about a half a year there, kind of stopped writing for that while I was doing in-game fiction with my designs. And then just things happened. I got fired from that job. And then, so a couple of years where I just kind of stopped everything to heal.
and that's where I kind of picked up out of there. But definitely a lot of those monastic things have a huge influence, and you'll see them in books too, with paladins that are based very much on like Prior Philip and monks that you can actually like sink your teeth into.
Brother,
So,
we are going to have a big, long conversation, you and I, about Pillars of the Earth at some point.
Yeah. I still have to read the third and the 0th book.
And the 0th book.
Yeah, which is called Evening in the Morning. So it takes place way back earlier. Anyway.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about Follett getting more people to follow him.
Yeah.
So I'm so let's play the little game of if you like X, then you'll like my. Oh, and by the way, if I'm a new reader and I haven't discovered Andrew D. Meredith yet, where do you actually want me to start? Or
so you have two entries.
If you're this, go this way, and if you're this, go this way.
Yeah. So if you like Hob and Lois McMaster Bujold, then I'm going to push you towards Deathless Beast, and that's my big epic paladins, mercenaries. Same Michael J. Sullivan too, for mercenaries on the road. It's all intertwined there. But when I had already written the book and discovered Lois McMaster Bujold, and I was like, oh, if I could ever be compared to this, I love this is my jam. So that's if you like Bujold, you'll like my Deathless Beast, Collation Saga. If you are a fan of Witcher, but you want something more akin to Bear and the Nightingale, something a little bit more laid back, but you still want a Mandalorian man and boy on road story, then Thrice is going to be your entry point, and it's a very fast read. It's 70,000 words. You're going to get in, get out, and have been through a good adventure. So
nice. Yeah. Okay, so we've got 4 minutes. So I want to do on both of the books, on Deathless Beast and Thrice, is what itch do those books scratch?
Mm-hmm.
What need do they fulfill? So let's start with Deathless Beast, because that one's been in your head for a long time. If there's a hole in my soul, what does that hole look like that fits your book?
That hole in your soul is going to look like your seeing and experience generational change and legacy, and from multiple, not just the point of views, but just a multivariated access to that change. And we've all gone through that since 2020 of seeing generational shift and both good and bad, right? Because and I tend towards much more towards the noble bright of that, of how does a generation hand over the legacy with dignity to the next one, and also how does sometimes a younger generation just pull a coup and try to tear it out of the hands of an older generation. So I'm dealing with a lot of that. Yeah. In Deathless.
That's excellent. Okay. So that's Deathless Thrice.
Yes.
What's the hole in the soul that gets filled there?
If you have ever experienced a little child speak far too much wisdom and you want to protect them at all costs, then that's Thrice. It was written as a bit of a love song to Burrich, of what if you told the story of Burrich, and Fitz is there as a little kid, as a 4-year-old kid, but it's really about Burrich. That's the story I wanted to tell, because I, like Troy was talking about, I love secondary character stories told from the secondary characters, from the marginalia, from there's big world things happening, but we're going to tell the story that's happening aside it. And so there's a battle 2 streets over, but you're following this guy in an alley. That's the story that I try to tell, with moments of normalcy and just happy feelings while things are going to crap somewhere else.
Okay, so do you have like a favorite review or something somebody said that just kind of felt like a breath of fresh air?
Yeah, Michael Roberti.
That was really true.
Yeah, Michael Roberti just dropped a review of both books for the collation so far, on his blog, on his website, michaelroberti.com. That was just it was soul warming. I was surprised. I wasn't surprised in that he told me it was coming, but it was still, I sat there and cried for a bit. Same on Grimdark magazine, which I don't write Grimdark, but Dr. Morrow reviewed my books, and his reviews just hit me. So yeah, and he loves his grimdark.
And he loves his grimdark.
Yeah.
So are we talking about something new that's coming up?
Yes. So Thrice came out in the end of 2021, and its sequel is coming out 1 month from today. It's called Fourscored. It's coming out on 4/4. So it is Fourscored on 4/4, just to remember. And that will be coming out in all 3 formats of print, ebook, and audiobook. I'll be narrating it with my dulcet tones. And it takes place 1 year later, and there is a group of evil Vedmak sorcerers who have showed up, and they're called the Fourscored, not because there's 80 of them, but because they hold the power of 80 mages in their caskets. That's all I'll say. And love might be in the air.
And love might be in the air.
And it's not for the little boy.
And, you know, technically I'm out of time, but everybody got an extra minute. But so I want to ask you the audiobook. Nobody narrates their own audiobooks. And people love listening to you. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Because for the people that are into audiobooks, I really think you need to try Meredith out.
Thank you. I love reading it because I've been on stage, and I knew I could try to do it. I knew I was going to probably lose. I knew the risk was I might lose a month of my life, and I did, because I had to record Thrice twice, because I screwed up the files, and I realized what I had done wrong, and I learned how to edit it. And so I was 2/3 of the way through the edit, and I was like, I could do better now. Okay, scratch. Let's start over. Went back to the beginning, and I was very happy with it. And I don't hate my voice too much. So, yeah.
I think your stage voice works just fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody, I want you to go out and buy this book right now. So if either one that feels like it fits in the right place, either Deathless Beast or the beginning of Thrice, give it a shot. And Andrew, I really appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. All right, so I want to talk with you right now. So the reason that I want to do this and that we want to do this is to promote indie authors. And so the thing that I really am going to ask, if you have watched this, at least pick out one of these books and go and get it now. Because 1, indie authors really need your support. 2, you taking a chance on something new that maybe you wouldn't have tried otherwise is one of the best parts of life, is taking that risk. And you heard some good stories here. So I'm just asking you genuinely, seriously right now, please take a look at these 3 authors and either pick one of them and go and buy their book, or go and buy all of them, because that's the kind of support that they need. Because the more eyeballs, the more better. And when you're done reading it, please rank and review it on Amazon. I don't care if you just give it 4 stars and walk away, or 5 stars and walk away. You don't have to write a big review, but that's the thing that helps the most. So that's what I'm asking is pick one of these books and go get it right now.